Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, was released on May 25th, 1983. First of all, when I watched Jedi this morning and the crawl started with the music, I got chills. Because it hit me that moment will happen at the beginning of The Force Awakens when I see it. At least, I assume it will. But yeah, big chills for what's to come. Anyway, Return of the Jedi basically starts at Jabba's palace, another very strange and artistically free setting where different creatures populate the screen, strange languages hang in the air, and as audience members, we're really not quite sure what's going on. We're dropped in the middle of this odd place with not much context. Until of course Luke's hologram message pops up, we're shown Han and Carbonite, and then we gather a rescue mission is underway. This moment, if you're following the theatrical cut of the movie, is the first time that the audience has seen Jabba the Hutt. We heard his name mentioned a few times in the previous two films, but we didn't know who or what he was. Of course, the special edition ruined that mystery and surprise by having him in the hangar in A New Hope, but in the original cut, it was a big moment. It had been 6 years leading up to Return of the Jedi, 6 years to finally know who this Jabba guy was, and when you saw him, it was a big shock. Jabba is a huge feat of puppeteering ingenuity. It took multiple people to control him. People to move his arms, tail, eyes, someone operating bellows to make it appear as though he was breathing. Jabba looks amazing. He looks believable. His palace is gritty and dark and makes you feel a sense of unease. The rescue operation is a lot of fun to watch. We see Lando pull down his mask. Okay, now we know where his heart is. He's one of the good guys. We weren't really quite sure at the end of The Empire Strikes Back. Leia tries to barter. Luke comes in wearing all black, looking somewhat sinister, like he means business. You know, as a kid, and not until a few years ago, I didn't really think of Luke as force choking the two guards when he entered the palace. I never really thought of it like that. I'm not quite sure why. There's a lot of debate whether or not he actually chokes them into submission, and it's an interesting little observation. I don't know if there's an official explanation. Luke does seem to exhibit a sense of brute force. Either hand over his friends or die. Black and white. Something that we really didn't expect from our hero after hearing Yoda's wisdom and training. The Rancor pit scene is great, shows vulnerability, it's exciting, and the stop motion work on the Rancor is fantastic. When this guy, who I always assumed was the Rancor's handler, comes in and weeps over his dead body, it's actually pretty heartfelt. It's an interesting little clip that they put in the movie. I always attributed this to the Rancor also being a prisoner at the hands of Jabba. He doesn't want to be there. The Rancor's put there for Jabba's amusement and pleasure. The escape on the barge, it's great. I love how the plan was set, everyone was in on it, knows their role, and executes. The entire beginning of the movie surrounding Jabba and the rescue of Han Solo, it's super weird in a good way. Everything is new and fresh, from the Sarlacc pit to Jabba himself, from Salacious Crumb to Bib Fortuna. The creature department knocked it out of the park, yet again. The opening of this movie is wonderful, a great way to reintroduce the characters that we all love, and bring them all together once again. So we discover that the Empire is building a new Death Star, which is something I've always been indifferent about. It seems a bit, I won't say lazy, but it seems a bit safe. And I think that's the key word when you're talking about Return of the Jedi. They played it safe. They introduced a new Death Star, didn't go down the path that was originally planned of Luke turning to the dark side, introduced cuddly Ewoks, and left us on a very high note with all of our heroes surviving the journey. It is a very safe movie, and hey, maybe it needed to be. After being in such a dark place in The Empire Strikes Back, maybe Jedi was the counterbalance. Maybe this is exactly what the audience wanted, and everyone on the production knew that, and therefore they played it safe. Out of the 3 films in the original trilogy, it's definitely the one that took the least amount of chances, which is why it's generally considered the weakest of the 3. It's still fun, don't get me wrong, it's a lot of fun. It's still Star Wars with the banter and the fast action, but it was never really unpredictable. They played it safe. When our heroes reach Endor, things kind of take an odd turn. I mean, the speeder bikes were awesome, a really fun and new spin on things. The setting of Endor is great. I even like the idea of the Ewoks being David and the Empire being Goliath. I enjoy the concept of a group of creatures defeating a technological giant. But Ewoks, they just don't do it for me. It's super lighthearted. C-3PO being a deity to them is really neat, a cool concept and positive note about the Ewoks being in the story. But I think the original plan of this entire sequence happening on Chewbacca's home planet and having Wookiees fight instead of Ewoks, I think that would have been a better idea to implement. I really don't know why that didn't come to fruition. I actually like the idea of no Ewoks and no Wookiee planet, and just having a giant assault by rebel ground troops. Kinda like how the Empire attacked Hoth. I think we should have seen a huge garrison of rebel troops assaulting the Forest Moon. But whatever, it is what it is, they played it safe. I'm gonna say it, I don't really like the idea of Luke and Leia being brother and sister, being twins. It always seemed really strange to me. Not just the whole kissing thing, but the entire concept of it. It really wasn't necessary. It didn't add anything to the plot. Just kind of thrown in there, hey, you got a sister, clunky. In fact, Gary Kurtz, the producer of The Empire Strikes Back, said, quote, "She's not his sister." That was dropped in to wrap up everything neatly. His sister was someone else way on the other side of the galaxy, and she wasn't going to show up until the next episode. Close quote. To me, having Luke and Leia be siblings started the franchise on the path of everything having to be connected. And you all know how I feel about that. By the end of the movie, we are pulled in 3 different directions. We're watching events unfold on the surface of Endor, witnessing the space battle surrounding the new Death Star, and see inside where Luke is confronted by Vader and the Emperor. This trifecta is fast and fun. It is a grand finale. All 3 events are connected to one another, going on at the same time, and we are put right in the middle of it all. It's a great way to put a cap on the trilogy, ending with a bang. The Millennium Falcon flying inside the core of the Death Star is some of the best flight footage in the saga. And man, the confrontation between Luke, Vader, and the Emperor, I don't think it could have been done any better. It was tense. The interaction between them is incredible. The Emperor is playing the role of the puppet master, and Vader comes off heavily as a servant. It's interesting. One of my least favorite things in the movie, when we officially find out that Luke and Leia are siblings, is directly connected to one of my favorite moments in the movie. When Vader says if Luke doesn't turn to the dark side, perhaps his sister will, and Luke pops up and yells, "Never!" and goes in for the kill. Man, shit, that is so awesome. I love it so much. He lets his rage take control of him, wildly swinging, full of anger. He begins to bash on Vader with full fury. The Emperor is laughing in the background as Vader lays on the floor helpless. This is an incredible sequence. Luke realizes that he's letting hate rule his actions. He turns off his lightsaber and tells the Emperor that he's lost, that he'll never turn to the dark side. And then Luke begins to writhe in agony as he's being electrocuted. Watching Vader look back and forth at the Emperor and his son, his allegiance being tested, his emotions pulling at him. This is a beautiful sequence. Even without seeing any facial expression, just a black mask, you can feel the turmoil inside of him. That's why the addition of Vader saying no on the Blu-ray release was so goddamn stupid. His silent, internal struggle was way more powerful than him saying no twice. God, that change sucks so fucking bad. Regardless, it's still an amazing scene. As Vader hoists the Emperor and throws him to his death, the trilogy comes to a close. The father has saved the son, and in a way, the son has saved the father. When Vader is unmasked, it's great. He's an old, vulnerable man. Vader instantly becomes a sympathetic figure, a father, not a brute. His character arc is complete. The decision to present Vader like this at the end of the trilogy is charming and very smart. Under his brutish exterior, he's really just a vulnerable man. Without his armor, without his powers and his authority, he's no different than anyone else. It's brilliant. It's the perfect way to end the trilogy. I love it. So, Return of the Jedi. It has its flaws. Sometimes it has trouble finding its tone, moving from cutesy Ewoks to dark confrontation. And yeah, it plays it pretty safe. Maybe too safe at times. But overall, it's a really fun ride and a great final page of the chapter.